Hello, people of the internet. I'm the ZodiacLord, and I'm finally back with another video on a topic that I've really wanted to talk about for a long time. And I've finally gotten kind of the motivation to do it. So first of all, forewarning, if you're not a fan of rambling, if you're not a fan of a person going on tangents unscripted, then this probably isn't the video for you, and you're free to go. You won't hurt my feelings. I'm just here to have a good time, and if you don't like rambling, then don't say I didn't warn you. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, first of all, a little bit of context on what's going on here. Zodiac, why are you drawing a neon rainbow pony right now, even though you've established that you aren't a brony? Well, dear viewer, it's because a user that I follow on DeviantArt, who does so happen to be a My Little Pony artist primarily, Lopdiddy, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce her name. I could be very wrong, and if I am, I apologize. But Lop recently posted a journal encouraging people and challenging people to basically come up with the most wild, outrageous, crazy pony design they possibly could and just go have fun with it. And that's the very key word here. So I decided, you know what, drawing ponies, as much as I'm not a brony, it is fun for me. I think drawing ponies is just kind of fun. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to have fun with this. I'm going to go draw a rainbow neon pony. Just have some fun. His picture was very fun to do. So, but this video is about. So you're going to be watching a Princess Neon Rainbow cringe being drawn today. So yes, I hope you enjoy that, and I hope she doesn't destroy your retinas too terribly. She has no mercy for your retinas. But yes, so I've actually posted this picture on DA with a very long written out thing on my opinion, which I'm actually going to be reading most of this off from, or most of my stuff is going to be coming from that. But I've gotten over 100 comments on that picture, which has been amazing, and it's been wonderful to read all the other opinions and sides, and it's helped me actually kind of solidify my own opinion. So towards the end of this, I'm actually going to address some of the comments and stuff like that that I feel like that should be addressed, that I could respond to. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going to be doing, and this video will be interesting to see talked about and see how people react to this video. So yeah, without further ado, let's get into this. So the message that I'm trying to be sent here is to destroy the idea of cringe culture, particularly the idea that it's okay to make fun and harass people over bad fictional characters on the internet. First of all, I'm aware this isn't what people call cringe. Some people more often think that the art or the bio of the character are the actual cringy parts. But I will say this though, even if the art itself is cringy, that's not really better, because that's placing the expectation that somehow people are supposed to be really good at art just when they first start, which is an entirely unrealistic and kind of stupid ideal that people really need to stop acting like that's reality. But design is something that is very often harped upon when it comes to original characters, is like, you can't do whatever, But I also want to say, because I can already hear people going off this in the comments, and this will be a perfect thing to see who watches the video long enough, but I am totally aware that constructive criticism is a thing, and I'm not saying that constructive criticism is bad. I think constructive criticism is great. Now, granted, I have some strong opinions about where people put that constructive criticism. I think people need to stop over and over repeatedly giving people who've openly expressed they don't want constructive criticism. I wish people would stop wasting their time on them and give that constructive criticism to people who actually want it, but that's a topic for another day. What I'm talking about here is not constructive criticism. I'm talking about the sort of things it's like, ew, this is so cringy, or this is so bad, or so stop trying, or you should just give up on this because it's bad, and that's obviously very exaggerated, although I've seen comments to that level. I'm not kidding you, I have, not to name names, but I've seen it. But that's kind of the idea that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about constructive criticism. I'm talking about the bullshit and the insults that people try to pass off as constructive criticism so they don't get criticism back. But yeah, so because obviously it's like it's just constructive criticism. Why are you getting mad at me for calling this thing shit? Which I mean, you're entitled to do that, but if you're allowed to express your opinion on that, I'm allowed to tell you that that was uncalled for and that's bullying. So okay. So let's be real here for a second. The type of cringe that I'm talking about specifically is when it comes to like original or fan made characters, more specifically fan characters, because those are more often the victim of this kind of thing, quote unquote. So I'm talking about like the sort of characters that people harp upon. You know the characters. You know what you're thinking of. The really edgy black and red ones, kill everyone, or super badass, and the neon rainbow Mary Sue's, whatever words you want to use to describe it. This is kind of what I'm talking about. And the idea I'm trying to get across is not that they are not bad from a standpoint of character design, but that people are allowed to do it. So let's just establish something first. 99% of the people who make these cringe characters that we talk about are like 12 to 13 to 14-year-olds, okay? If you can actually look back on yourself when you were 13 years old and not cringe a little about how you act, and I'm talking to like people who are my age right now, like if you're 16, 17, whatever, or even older than that, if you can look back on your 13-year-old self and not cringe, then I have some terrible news. You probably haven't changed at all since you were 13, and you might really want to look at yourself a little bit harder because you might still be cringy. Dun, dun, dun. But we all are cringy little shits when we are those ages, whether it be how we act or what we are into, because when we're growing up and dealing with hormones and figuring things out, and this is usually like the first age we really get into things like YouTube, or well, I got not really get into, but like we start looking into like finding out. Let me rephrase myself. It's sort of the first age where we really start figuring out what original characters and stories are. Just from like the people I've talked to, that's usually the first age that they really get into it. So it's often like it's just really the first age kids often get into the internet, I've noticed, and start getting really serious with making characters, particularly fan characters. So just to establish, I'm not saying all of the people who make bad characters are in fact kids. I'm saying that most of them are. Let's just be real with that, okay? Most of them are kids. And kids, surprise, surprise, want to have fun. They make characters to have fun. I highly doubt a kid really made their edgy demon pony to make millions of dollars. And if they did, well, you know what? Soon enough, they'll figure out that they can't do that because of copyright if it's a fan character. And if they really want to, they'll start to figure themselves out, okay? They will. And if these kids actually want to get popular or propose their ideas to a company, well, that's a very different story. That's the kind of situation where they really would have to look at what people would enjoy, But if they just want to write and draw their cringy characters just for fun, can we not just let them and leave them be and not act as if they're ruining the internet by existing, And I can already hear the argument in the background. They put it on the internet. They should expect this. Yes, sure, maybe. Doesn't make someone commenting, lol, this is bad, stop trying, right and justified, because it's the internet. I mean, if you think that's uncalled for in real life, it's uncalled for on the internet. And if you're going to harass people online, you better expect not everyone's gonna find you that funny. It goes both ways, And so I'm not saying that kids shouldn't expect it. I'm saying that I wish less people would do it. And again, I'm not talking about constructive criticism where people actually think out a critique. I'm talking about people who feel a need to kind of insult and berate things like publicly because they think it's bad and because they have nothing better to do with their life. Just saying. And another argument I can hear is, well, a lot of these kids are obnoxious jerks online. That's what we're mad about. And yes, I won't deny that. I can think of plenty of cases where someone's made a bad character and they've also been kind of an obnoxious jerk that freaks out at people and like is rude and harasses people. But guess what? That is the person we're talking about. That is the person being an ass. It's not the stupid character, you know? If someone's being an idiot, address the idiot. But just because one kid with a rainbow neon shit show is an ass doesn't mean every kid with a character like that is going to act like an ass. So it's not a relative thing. There's different people. Some people just want to go have fun by themselves. Some people are idiots. Go deal with the idiots. The characters are not the source of the idiots. And a point to that is like, for the love of God, if someone doesn't respond well to criticism, stop wasting your time and to get a reaction. It drives me crazy. I'm not going to go too much in detail about it because that's kind of a thing for another day. But like, please, if you want to give constructive criticism to someone, I would highly recommend go find someone who wants it. Go find someone who's looking for it. There's so many people I know who don't get constructive criticism because people aren't paying attention to them. They're paying attention to the idiots that are making fools of themselves because they're reacting bad. And all of you just really want to get a reaction out of them. That's a tangent for another day, but I'm just saying, if you really want someone to listen to your criticism, go find someone who's expressed that they're willing to listen, okay? That's all I'm saying. You can't be surprised when someone doesn't listen to you when they've already made it clear to everybody else that they don't listen, you know? So just a random side tangent. But anyway, back to the point. Why should we let kids who aren't harming anyone make and post their terrible characters? Because it's a learning experience. No one, and I mean no one, is born knowing how to make good characters. To expect the first character somebody makes, especially a kid, to be amazing and believable is a ridiculous and unrealistic idea. And this goes for art as well and a lot of other things, but this is like specifically for characters. It's just completely unrealistic to assume that a character's first character is going to be good, you know? And this might be anecdotal, but I can speak from very personal experience. My first fan character, quote unquote, was a self-insert with a bunch of nonsensical powers for no good reason. I would insert them into every damn movie, book, and TV show I ever watched, often making them the daughter or something of a canon character. Cringy, right? It was very cringy, and I cringe at those days. But I then gave her her own original story, and it was even worse. Not only was she a bad character, but I gave her an edgy red and black sister who was supposed to be a badass and super edgy and dark and shit, you know? Now those characters are so much better. I've changed and I've improved them, and that's a video for another day. But I make such better stories and art, and I always wonder to myself, what would have happened to me if someone found my edgy cats when I was younger and said stuff like, ew, this is cringe, or totally deconstructed them without any warning, to a person who's new to art and new to characters and stuff like that. I don't think I'd be here nowadays. I think I would have given up before I really gotten started, or been far too afraid to take the risks I do with my stories. I take a lot of risks with my stories. I do my best to actually really attack tropes and things like that because I think that's fun. But I think if people had really destroyed my confidence back then when I was younger and really made me feel as if I have to impress everybody, I don't think I'd be able to do that. I don't think I'd have such risk-taking characters nowadays because I would have been too scared of how people would react to me. And they definitely wouldn't be on the internet if I did have characters like that, because I'd be too scared about disappointing everyone, basically, you know? Because that's how most kids are. They don't want to disappoint people, you know? Sometimes making bad characters is just fun. This picture you watched me draw, it's terrible and it hurts your eyes, but by God, it was fun for me. It was fun to draw, it was fun to come up with, and just kind of let myself have at it and let loose. And I mean, it's not hurting anyone other than your retinas. So what's so wrong about me drawing this other than it doesn't appeal to you, you know? And, you know, if I'm okay with that, then that's okay if it doesn't appeal to you, you know? And here's the thing. When you start telling people, the real danger of this is that when you start telling people that they can't have fun because they have to please what you subjectively think is appealing and what you subjectively think is good in a character, then they stop having fun and letting their creativity fly and focus more on pleasing a demographic. Yeah, you think of all of those kinds of like the like all the fact that there's so many remakes nowadays, all the really terrible movies that you can tell were made just to be a cash grab. That's what happens when you focus on appealing to more people than you do on having fun and enjoying yourself. And obviously, that's a different example. A corporation is different than somebody on the internet, but at the same time, let the corporations and let the companies worry about pleasing everybody and let people online have fun with their characters. If they're not harming anybody, then they should be allowed to just kind of just live, let leave and let live, you know? And that's why I think the danger of this cringe culture comes into play. Because obviously you're entitled to your opinion. If you think it's fine to go make fun of people because they decided to have fun with something, then you know what? I can't really stop you. But I think it's very dangerous, especially to younger children who are still figuring themselves out, to tell them that they have to please people, you know, and that they can't have fun and be creative with their characters. Obviously, it might not appeal to you, especially when the first time, but if they're really serious about characters, they will figure it out. And I know, because now we're going to get into some comments that I've actually kind of seen, like some arguments I've seen proposed. One of a very common argument is that, well, if you don't give them critique, they'll never know how to improve. I can argue that with myself. I know it's anecdotal and everybody is different, but I did not receive much criticism for my characters when I was younger because people didn't know about me and I didn't really know what criticism was when I was younger. But you know what? As I got older, I figured it out. I could figure it out on my own on how to make an actually good, compelling character. I figured out through people actually kind of making videos and tutorials on how to make something good. I figured out by reading things myself, watching movies, analyzing stories myself. I figured out with just playing around with things and growing up. You can figure this stuff out on your own, and sometimes you have to let people figure that out on your own. I'm not saying that some people don't need criticism, because some people do, but you shouldn't use that as an excuse to berate someone for having fun, because sometimes you just got to leave them to figure it out on their own. If they want to be popular for something, that's very different. If somebody wants their story to be famous, you know, or they want to propose the idea to a company, then in that case, they actually have to think about what's appealing and what's works and stuff like that, you know? But sometimes people don't care so much about that. They care more about just having fun and being themselves and dealing with life. And you know what? Again, most of these people are flipping 12 to 14-year-olds. 12 to 14-year-olds shouldn't be worried about proposing their idea to a company yet. They should be worried about growing up and actually getting through school. You know? Let them just have their characters be a fun mental break from school. They don't need to worry about their future at that age, you know? At least not that much. So, you know, that's all I'm saying. This kind of thing, when you implant that idea before they can figure out what they're doing, you kind of can ruin their like prospects and their creativity in the future, and you make them scared to take chances with their characters, you know? They're scared to actually attack tropes and attack cliches because they're worried people are going to think it's cliche and not like it, you know? That's the kind of damage that this can do to a person. In fact, my suggestion is that maybe instead of being lazy and, like, for example, just because I know this is a very well-known example, instead of maybe making a animation cringe compilation on people who are just trying to figure out animation, when I can almost guarantee you 90% of the people who make those videos couldn't animate for shit, instead of doing that, why don't you actually, like, make a video talking about how you can improve that kind of stuff? Or, you know what, even better, go find some popular animator, ask them if you can use some of their older work, and do that. Because trust me, when you've improved at something, you like to make fun of it. That's how I feel. Like, I love going back and looking at my old, terrible artwork and cringing at it because it reminds me how far I've come. And that's, I think, a better idea rather than, like, going after, like, people who are still learning and that's their level right now. Go find people who've already surpassed that point and try to find stuff from them to cringe at. And honestly, you can make an example of that. You can take an old character and, like, make an example of it for other people so people can learn from that mistake from somebody who already has learned from that mistake. You don't always have to aim for one person. You can aim for a lot of people and help a lot of people. And that's kind of a loose tangent. I'm sorry if that didn't make a lot of sense, but that's kind of my point, is that you don't always have to make fun of something new. You can make fun of something old, you know? Doesn't change much. Another thing that I actually saw, or that I see, is people talk about how, like, well, you know, it's not usually the characters, it's the artwork. And to me, that's even kind of worse, because, again, with the same with characters, nobody's born knowing how to draw. If you think the artwork is cringy, well then, A, it's not the character's fault. B, you know, it's just, they're improving. You gotta give them a chance to improve, you know? Like, I don't understand the argument. It's not really any better, you know? So, yeah. You know, in fact, even kind of leading off onto that, another thing that I saw a lot were a lot of people saying that a lot of these intentionally bad designs, quote unquote, don't even look half bad, and they don't really look like the actual terrible things people think of. And I have an explanation for this. It's because A, those people have already improved to a point where they actually understand how design works and stuff like that. So they tend to make the characters to their aesthetic. For example, I could have made this design so much worse. I could have made her bright neon pink on top of the rainbow, but because I'm me, my personal aesthetic wouldn't really let me do that, and I had to go with a darker shade of magenta to keep my sanity intact. Because again, I was having fun with this. I was choosing to have fun over proving the point, so, you know. And a lot of other people are like that too. They're still making something kind of appealing. And also, it's probably because it's almost like I'm a better artist than a lot of the designs people complain about. And that's not even me being egotistical. You know, it's like, it's not on a base. It's freehand. I've actually been drawing for a while, you know. So that's probably why, and like the same goes with the other examples in this little pool that we're talking about. It's because people maybe are better artists than that. And again, that goes back to the whole, maybe it's the art you're thinking of that's really cringy, which in the case, you know, they can't help it if they're not a good artist, because it's almost like artist is a learned practice that you gotta practice and improve on. But that's my point. These might not look as bad as the examples we're trying to go for, but it still kind of proves a point. It also kind of helps the point in the sense of, like, see a quote-unquote bad design or a cringy design can still look good, you know? That's kind of just saying there, you know? But yeah, and another very interesting comment I actually got that was very out of left field was there was somebody who was talking about, like, well, you know what? I'm 13. You don't speak for, like, we're not all cringy. I don't do stuff that's cringy. And I thought it was kind of hilarious because it was so defensive. It almost makes you think that they were, like, they do think they're doing cringy things. And to that I say, first of all, you are 13. I guarantee when you're 17, you're probably going to have a change of mindsets, and whatever you did when you were younger, whether it is quote cringy or not, you're going to find it cringy. Can't really say whether you're cringy or not when you're in the moment, because usually you don't know that you're cringy when you're in the moment, but you know, you only usually know in hindsight. But also, again, I never said all 12 to 13 year olds do make cringe and they make bad stuff, same as not all the people who make bad stuff are 12 to 13 year olds, you know. It's everything has exceptions. That's how life works. But that was a funny comment that I got. So, yeah. There was also a comment that was talking about how, like, you know, I think, just to paraphrase, was kind of like, I think people should be allowed to do what they want, but I think young artists could still learn a thing or two about color theory when it comes to, like, bad colors in characters. And, like, yeah, I agree, but that's kind of missing the whole point of, like, what's being talked about here is the fact that they should maybe learn a thing or two about color theory, but you're saying that they have to follow that rule. If somebody wants to make something that hurts your eyes, they have full permission to do that. It's not going to be appealing to people, but if they don't care about that, then that's fine. See, the big difference here about whether or not, like, something works is the fact, like, does the artist or creator themselves care what other people think about it? That's kind of the key phrase, because if they do care and they want their character to be appealing, that's very different. And in that case, it should be taught to them to kind of accept and learn to take criticism and figure out what they're doing so they can make more appealing characters. But if they don't care and they're just here for the shits and giggles, then they should be allowed to do that, and people shouldn't, like, you know, get all up in their business because they're just doing their thing and they're having fun, you know. You know, yeah. But, like, that's kind of my feelings. It's sort of like, I think it kind of covers the general idea that I can think of on there, you know? But, like, overall, I do actually have some advice for if you really want to help these creators. My advice, if you really, really want to, rather than maybe going after people and trying to aim at a target, why don't you make things just in general to give advice? Or, again, go find people who actually genuinely want criticism and critique on what they do, and, you know, like, give it to them, you know, because there are people who look, and there's unfortunately a lot of people who don't get criticism and advice because people are too focused on the worst cases that aren't going to listen, you know, and have already established they're not going to listen. But that's kind of overall my point. So to just kind of summarize everything and wrap it up in a neat little bow for the end of the video, I believe people should we can just let people do what they want with their characters. If they are not hurting anyone with their characters, if they're just here to have fun, let them go have fun. Stop. You don't have to go follow them and look at it. You can just let them do their thing and let them enjoy themselves, and they'll either figure themselves out or maybe they never will, but they don't care because they're not here to please people. They're here to have fun, you know? And I believe the world could be a lot more creative place if we stopped making rules about how you can and cannot make a fan character and how you can and cannot make like a flippin' cartoon horse. If we stopped giving people these rules and regulations, people might have confidence to actually do some crazy things in the future that people actually will enjoy. And again, constructive criticism is a different topic. I support constructive criticism, and I believe everyone should at some point in their life learn to take it if they really want to get serious with art and character making. But if someone's here to have fun, if someone's just figuring themselves out, I don't believe in bullying and harassing them because they don't fit your standard, you know? So that's kind of my idea, and that's how I feel about cringe culture and that kind of thing. And, you know, it's only cringy because we make it, and cringe is very subjective. So that's all I have to say. I hope you enjoyed the artwork. I hope you enjoyed my tangent. Please leave your opinions in the comments and stuff like that. Leave a like if you enjoyed. And I try my best to read every comment. I don't always respond, but I try my best to read it all. And I hope you enjoyed. This is a subject I'm very passionate about, if you can't tell. So anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Hope you're all having wonderful days. And I will see you in the next video, whatever it may be. Zodiac out. And it was at this moment that Zodiac realized he almost forgot to give a shout out to all of his lovely, lovely Patreons. He's sorry about that, and he's gonna do that right now. Hooray. So to my $2 tier plus patrons, I love you too. To Slowpoke Queen, my 5-tier plus patron, I will give you a high five for being so awesome. And you know whose power levels are over $9. Angel of Darkness, Cinnamon Kun, Skyak 2, Twisted Disaster, FEMA, and Rendered Life. I love you all, and I'm sorry I almost forgot about. Please forgive me. Now that is all.